Mike McWilliams. Welcome to Upstairs to the Right Music Channel. Thank you so much for taking the time to join in, whether you're going to be here with us live tonight or if you're going to catch us in the rerun. I want to let you know that I do deeply appreciate you taking your time, your precious time, and spending a little bit of it here at the Upstairs to the Right Music Channel. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, let me see how we're framed here. Yeah, it looks good. Ben in the house. Good evening. How you doing, sir? Um, well, I have to say, I'll wait for more people to join into the chat here, so I'll just chat a bit with you if you don't mind. Uh, the weather here is just crazy. It's getting towards the end of April, and really seriously, it's like winter. It is freezing here, man. Michael Watson in the house. We're all doing well, just freezing, and at least in my part of the world. Hey, sir, how you doing? How you doing there? Good evening to you. Welcome. I'm so glad you joined in this evening. I've been dipping in and out of your channel. And again, I reiterate, I am intimidated by the chord of the day. Frederick Rogers in the house. Hello. Welcome, Mr. Rogers, in the neighborhood with us. Thank you so much for joining in. Yeah, weather here has just been terrible, and this is the time of year that I usually start doing my planting because I do try to keep a garden. I have enough space where I can keep a reasonable garden, and I actually use the produce. I eat it, so it is to my detriment that this weather is making it so that I can't plant. So I'm wondering how it's going to turn out this year. I like to film more out there, to tell you the truth. I like to do, an outdoor unboxing. I certainly want to go out there and do this spray painting thing that I'd like to do with this body and film that. So got to get it looking nice for that. But this weather, no, I don't think so. Seriously, I had to bring out my winter coat. I put it away. I was a little premature. I had to bust that sucker out, man, because it's like one. The low is one tonight. That's in Celsius. And I think the high today was 8. And my friends in Japan are like, "Oh yeah, man, it's like summertime here. It's like 27." Oh, great. Yeah, just my luck. Wrong place, wrong time. But things have been good here. I went down to Fern's today. Fern is our friendly neighborhood luthier, a good friend of this channel. And when guitars come in, I'll run through them myself. Like that Fender bass that came in, the 62 reissue, there was nothing that, I did an intonation on it. And other than that, there was really nothing it needed. So that didn't go to Fern, but the older ones, like the Yamaha, for example, being a guitar from 1980, um, it is prudent for me to take something like that down and have him check it out first. And got it back today from him. And the report was that it is for a 44-year-old guitar. It is in excellent condition. Excellent condition. The microphones haven't gone microphonic on us. They're still sounding good, just like out of the box. And he confirmed a couple of things. We started talking about it and going through it. A few things that he didn't know. I ran by him the wood material on the fretboard and told him what it was, kauri, and he was like, "I've never heard of that." And this is a man. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the shots of his place, but like any good luthier who builds guitars, he's a guitar builder. This man has every wood known to mankind in his shop, and all of really good quality too, seasoning well. And he hadn't heard of kauri, and so he actually looked it up there in the shop on his computer screen. I was like, "Yeah, that's it right there." And so that was funny, That he said that's a new one, and because he thought it was ebony, and I did too when I first looked at that fretboard material. I thought it was ebony, but So that was kind of funny. It's always good to, like I said, I seek knowledge, and I thought maybe he could tell me something about it. I ended up telling him something about it, and I don't know that much. I know it's used in high-end cars like Mercedes, the dashboard material, the when it's real wood, it's kauri, and that's considered to be very high premium. And we know that some of those early squires out of China were made out of kauri, so or agathis as we call it, agathis. And yeah, that was a pretty funny situation there where he just had no idea, and so that was kind of funny. But the other thing that we started talking, by the way, guys, I'm going to be frank with you. I am frazzled. This has been the last 2 days have been a whirlwind for me. Plus, I did get up early and do a live stream on these other guys' channel at 4 a.m. And I don't think I've ever really caught up from that. And so I'm a little frazzled tonight. So I'm going to freeball it a little bit here tonight. So if this is somewhat coherent by the end, I will be a pleased man because I'm not expecting much. I'm a little frazzled. And it's only Wednesday, so that's not good. I still got, I still ain't nothing but a muffin, like Prince used to say. We got a lot of butter to go. So, um, from the comment section tonight, title comes from a conversation, brief conversation that Dewey, you guys know Dewey, he commented on the headstock on the Yamaha. He says, "Well, that's not quite a Gibson headstock there." And I agree with him. It's a kinda, and it got me thinking when he wrote that. I started thinking, again, I read the comments section on everything that I do because sometimes there's some little gems of wisdom in there that people share, and I do appreciate that. So even with tonight's live stream, I would appreciate if you do two things. Find the time to make a comment down in the comment section if you want to add to the conversation that way, and hit the like button as well. It really does help a lot. So don't forget to hit the like button, whether you're watching this live right now. I see 8 people watching and 3 likes. Something's wrong with the math there. And if you're watching this in the rerun, don't forget to hit the like button as well. It does really help. It is a metric that is important on YouTube. So down in the comment section, Dewey said that, and I started thinking to myself. I said, "Well, there are been, to my mind, I've seen a lot of different Gibson headstocks, and I'm not talking about the stuff prior to 1950. I'm talking about on the electrics from 1950 on to now, and I or 52. I then with the way that my mind works and the way that the thought process going and the other thought process, well, this might be a good topic to discuss on a live stream to get into a little bit. And so I appreciate Dewey you making that comment. I state that this is a lawsuit era guitar, and that the lawsuit era wasn't really a lawsuit. It was a cease and desist order, and it was really over an Ibanez headstock that was supposed to be this story. Now, this is where even with the research that I've done, it gets a little fuzzy, and I think that bears a little. When things get fuzzy, it bears sometimes worth digging into a little deeper. So, yeah, I talked to Fern when I had the Yamaha down in the shop, and I've got it here next to me. I brought it in, uh, and take a look at that headstock. And Dewey was pointing out, well, it's not quite a Gibson headstock, and I said, well, it's kind of a Gibson headstock. Uh, to my mind, it looked like something that I had seen on Gibsons before. when to my mind, I was thinking that they were modeling it more after like a custom headstock. But that's not good enough. The coulda, shoulda, wouldas. And I pointed out to, and then I started doing a little research, and then I tagged on to his comment. Well, here, or I wonder what headstock myself. Now I'm starting to wonder because, and I share with him a link to a bunch, and you can see that in the comment section yourselves of a bunch of different Gibson headstocks when I just started doing my initial research into that thought. And this is what I came up with after a day or so of looking into it and talking about it. So when Fern and I were down at the shop today, see, this is one of the beautiful things about being able to go into a guy's shop like Fern's is that he has examples of just about every guitar that people have dropped off that he's working on, and you can take measurements. So we did that. If Gibson can sue PRS for the single cut, they'll sue and have sued anyone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're a little more sue happy this latest administration, and I do consider them administrations. You know, there was the Henry J administration, and then there was the one prior to that. But Fern had a Gibson, uh, a standard. He had an Ibanez from 1977, 78. There's no serial number, so we really couldn't say. So this would be a definitive lawsuit guitar, uh, lawsuit in quotes, of course, headstock. And then, of course, my Yamaha. So we did some measurements. But before I get into the measurements and what we discovered, and again, I showed you, and I'll show it to you again, because after that you'll be like, "Huh, really?" Over the years, there have been dozens of Gibson shapes and variations on their headstocks, but they're all basically variations of three, according to Gibson themselves on their website, and that is the 61 reissue headstock, which you'll find on SGs primarily, and and is similar. I'm killing the lead a little bit here. That is like this Yamaha over here headstock, but we'll get into that. The historic headstock, and then the standard headstock that we all know. My Stoner guitar had the standard headstock because they licensed to Gibson to be able to use that. And so everything else, and of these three headstock shapes, uh, there are variations of those. They're the basic ones, but there are, it's a moving target even with these. And I think that comes to a question. John Bond, welcome, sir. Welcome to the audience. Thank you so much for piping in. So that leads to the question, okay, there's a 61 reissue headstock, the historic headstock, and the standard headstock. And these are all considered to be Gibson headstocks, the open book style headstocks. Then how could they even do a cease and desist order against Ibanez? The question, I mean, what headstock, in other words, is exactly the one that's trademarked they were itching off of, basically. What? And that's a question that, in researching this, I actually found that I'm not the first person to ask that. That's been a question that's been asked a few times out there on the internet. And again, when you start going down rabbit holes, well, other than the snakes that you'll find also a lot of different directions that it goes into. You go down the main hole and then it branches off. And then whenever anything is a little bit fuzzy, again, like I said, that's usually worth looking into. Worth looking into. Now, you know, we'll put a pin in that thought, or we'll return to that. But again, it gets into my what's in a headstock. Exactly which Gibson headstock are we talking here is the title of tonight's live stream, in in connection to which one exactly were they doing a cease and desist order with Ibanez back, the corporation that owned the parent company of Ibanez at that time. Exactly what which one is it exactly? And having seen a true law an Ibanez from that period today, just today at Fern Shop, it illuminated things. See, a couple of things. Uh, what's in a headstock? You know, I on this channel really have come just to the conclusion, especially today, with the advent of the $2,000 Epiphone, damn well near, that if we're going to be spending that kind of coin, if you're for first and foremost, if you're fortunate enough to be able to spend that kind of coin. John Bond, I bought the 77 ES 175 copy. Yeah, I got one on consignment right now with a client. Yeah, I've got a 78, something like, yeah, 78, something like that. Yeah, on consignment right now. Wish it had the traditional Gibson headstock. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. It. I do believe on that one that I don't have them in front of me. I should have pulled them up. I just wrote it down. But yeah, even you got the Epiphone guy saying, "Oh, I wish it had the Gibson headstock," and then you got the Gibson guy saying, "I wish it had the right Gibson headstock." And again, the insanity of the headstock thing is what I'm talking about here. What's in a headstock? You have to be, again, in today's prices of things, we have to be far more discriminating, and we should be anyway. And we have to ask ourselves, does that really matter? Now, the selling point on this Yamaha, one of the selling points, but not one that I'm planning on using, to be frank. Um, because again, I pointed out there's no such thing as a lawsuit guitar, and so that's why I titled the video, the unboxing, cease and desist guitar. It's a little less sexy. Lawsuit has such, you're going to do this, and cease and desist is like, could you please, so it doesn't quite have the same bite to it. So I don't care about that. What I care about is quality. And um, the quality of this instrument, especially with Fern going through it today and his expert eye, and really confirming that this is not a veneer on the front of this. This is a solid three-piece maple cap on this, and just the quality of this guitar. I can tell you by the weight that it's not a veneer. Just the quality of a guitar like that can be had for a fraction of, well, not a fraction, but it could be had for less, slightly less than what you'd be getting. Not you would be getting veneers and not as good quality woods with the current selection of the inspired by Gibson Epiphones for this year, 2024. See, you know, it doesn't have to say Epiphone or Gibson on the headstock. It could say Ibanez. It could say Yamaha. It could say Greco. And just those that I named, you have such a wide variety of excellent choices, especially with the Japanese made ones. I'm laughing when you're lower low. Okay, my memory is so bad that I can't remember the difference between them. Yeah, that's what's getting with me too. My mind, man. That's why maybe just instinctively I'm like, you know what, fudge it. What does it matter? Let's look at the quality of what it is and start use that as a starting worry about what the headstock. If I could buy a guitar that says Stoner on the headstock, I obviously am a guy who doesn't really care about what it says on the headstock or the shape of it for that matter. Got an Avon Rose Morris SG Cummings, sweet. Yeah, okay, I know that. Early 70s Gibson headstock. Forgot I bid on it. Coming tomorrow, I think. Yeah, that's the unboxing you were talking about. Yeah, man, I'd like to see that. Are you going to film that? I want to see that. You mentioned it. Now you got to film it. I want to see it. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that headstock. You know, because now I'm on this headstock because I'm down that rabbit hole, and I told you rabbit holes don't go down them because if you have this kind of mind that I have, it's just it gets to be too much. Andrew 357, welcome, sir, welcome to the chat. I've a Tokai Gold Star 1985 is a very high quality build. Yes, know it very well. Know the Gold Star very well. That is a Strat. Film it, most likely. I like to see it. I like to see it. I really would. Please do, sir. Onegashimasu. Please do. I really would like to see that. But yeah, guys, I mean, like I said, I think we've finally in 2024 got to the point where, that's not really the thing. We should be really discerning in saying to ourselves, well, wait a minute. Yeah, it's got the open book headstock, this Yamaha, and I'm going to go through some measurements here. It's really going to surprise you. And that's but again, that gets into you know which headstock is your choice, because then that gets into an individual kind of thing. Most of us do consider the standard headstock to be the standard. So, like again, on that Stoner guitar, and you would find on the Gibson Standard, and quite a few of the Grecos and Tokais from back in the day as well. But again, I think that the fuzziness of the history of which one exactly, again, and by the way, I have no answer. That's why I told you guys tonight's going to be a free balling, because I've made notes, I studied, I've got 3 pages of notes here of things that I researched over the last 2 days, and I don't have a definitive answer to that, and I don't think there is one. And again, the quickness that it was dropped because Ibanez and Yamaha and all the other guys had already moved on. They had made slight changes to their headstocks already. But were these slight changes exactly changes that didn't make them a Gibson headstock? Did I say that right? Does that make sense? Well, let's go through these measurements first. So I talked about, I'll show it to you again just so you can see it. So let's keep this in mind. You would look at that and you would say to yourself, well, it's kind of the open book headstock standard style, but it's a little bit different. So it actually looks like that 61 SG headstock. Well, but what is it that makes it look slightly different than the standard headstock? And here's where I think things get interesting in the murkiness. Now, the length of it is 13.5 millimeters, and that is the same length of a headstock that you would find on a Gibson Standard and on that Ibanez headstock that we measured along the 3 headstocks that we measured today. The middle width, so the middle of the headstock, the mid width is 70 millimeters, which is again exactly identical to the Gibson, to the Ibanez, and the Yamaha. So far, so good. The width at the logo is 80 millimeters, and again, this is the same that you would find on the Ibanez lawsuit guitar, or cease and desist order. Oh, no, I can't do that with lawsuit, cease and desist order. In actuality, guitar that Fern had in the shop, and the width at the at the logo was 80 millimeters, and the same with all 3. Now, here is where it gets interesting. The width At the bottom, so the width here, this area, on a Gibson standard was 70 millimeters. And on the Ibanez, it was actually slightly less, a little bit less. And on the Yamaha here, it was slightly more. It was 70.5 millimeters, 70.5. Which that point 0.5 is what makes it seem just a little off. So it's exactly the same, and just at the bottom it gets a little bump up, zero point 0.5 millimeters. It's not a lot. And the Ibanez actually came in a little bit more. And so again, there we have, an 80. We've got a current Gibson. It was current Gibson, but that's all we had. And late 70s Yamahas and Ibanez's, and again, the measurements were pretty much the same until you got down to the bottom there, and that's where I think they made their small adjustments. You know, and the change is so slight. Zero point 0.5 millimeters is such a slight one. It optically looks to you like it's different, but it's not that much different. They're not that much different. Well, we're not the Gibson headstocks in the 70s bigger anyway. That's my point. Is that and you guys can look this up online. There's a few guys who have researched Gibson headstocks, and they'll show you over the years. And even in there's variations. Um, and so with the measurements, I see. I like hard data. There's no wiggle room with that. And so I'm even more kind of perplexed now than I was before, because this is identical to actually the 61 reissue headstock, whereas the other two were more like the standard. But then we've seen the historic headstocks. If they make an Albert King Flying V reissue, I want one with a Les Paul headstock, even though they're inferior to the V headstock. Yeah, I've seen some like custom shop guys who had made these, and they put that kind of headstock on, and I thought that looked cooler myself. But I know what you mean. Yeah, they were bigger. I mean, and again. So I don't know what the cease and desist order was really about. Now I'm a little bit, just a little fuzzy. Troglodyte Guitar Channel has a lot of info about Gibson. Yeah, him and Bonamassa are in a race to see who can collect the most. Troglodyte, the more modern day ones, and Bonamassa, the older ones. One day they'll have a party and they'll just roll around in their collective collections. Yeah, he's got a lot, and it's very interesting to go through his channel from time to time. He'll pull up something that I'll go and take a look at because I'm curious myself. Restoring a Fernandez Adrian Vandenberg from the 1980s, not a Gibson headstock. I have a 78 Navigator SG. My 83 Bernie SG has a slightly larger 70s Gibson headstock. So that would be what is that called? The reissue. So that would be the 61 reissue headstock on that, like this. I'll take some measurements. Yeah, I would appreciate that, Seamus. And by the way, welcome, Seamus, to the chat. I am curious because, again, if we gather this data, we can kind of at least, the more that we can take some of the fog away from this stuff, I think the better off we all are. And again, tonight, Dewey was the one who got me thinking on this one tonight, because he pointed out that's not quite right. And I dug a little bit, and now I'm a lot more confused. Thanks, Dewey. Now I'm even more perplexed than I was before. If you catch this one, he's not here tonight with us, but I know he'll watch it in the rerun. And I am more perplexed than I was before. I really am. Because again, this is hard data. Thank God, again, that I can literally a 15-minute, 10-minute walk from here, go to Fern's shop and take those kind of measurements on the actual items and say, okay, all right, what does this tell us? Fern, the luthier, says his opinion, because I asked him, of course, after we did this, and I explained to him what I was going to talk about tonight. And he said, "Yeah, they're all over the place." you know, and there's variations. He says there's just variations on them. He was explaining to me. I don't have it here. I was had a bridge that I took down to him and for another project, and he was explaining to me that even with the bridges, there are some that are 72 millimeters, and there's some that are, I think he said 63 or something like that, and you don't know which one, and there's variations even in the Asian models. He says in the bridges, and that can get tricky. So it's a tricky thing. Um, John Bond says, "I love the G-force tuners, despite everyone else hates them." Eh, yeah. What was that on the 20? Anyway, that was on the 2015. Tried to put a G-force on the 1960 Classic 2003, and it did not fit. Yeah, again. So everything is all over the place. So I'm not promoting this as having. I mean, what to me that's a Gibson. That's a Gibson headstock. It's a 60, basic, but that doesn't matter to me. That, to be frank with you, and I'm not going to try to pitch this as that being the end all. I was actually making fun when I made that statement that I didn't have to pay extra for when I unboxed it, because I was saying that it's ridiculous to me that anybody would pay the up bump in charges on those latest Epiphones just because it has the Gibson Epiphone. It switched from the Epiphone headstock to the Gibson headstock. That's ridiculous to make that kind of an upcharge. I hope that's not the reason. I haven't found a valid reason yet, because we went through the numbers. Again, the numbers don't lie. We went through the inflation on those things, and it didn't add up there either, did it? Hmm. How now, brown cow? So no, with this thing, it's the fact that this is a solid maple cap, dude. Okay, three pieces, but that's how they made them back then. And yeah, the neck is a three-piece neck, but again, and the way that they use the volute and put it into the design of the neck, I think that that's just ingenious. It's actually beautiful. And so it's a piece of art in that regard. Even with that, when they put it together, they're thinking, okay, there's going to be a little bit. If we do this paint scheme, it'll look cool and nice. An epi for 1800 because of the headstock. Nope. Yep. Yeah. You know. So no, it's the fact that, and by the way, you're not getting a solid three-piece cap on any of those Epiphones. By the way, if you peel under that onion, you'd be lucky if it's just four, maybe five pieces underneath there. Hmm? If you reach back a little bit in time and you do a little research, you do a little bit of digging, the point of all this is that you can find something nice that's better, and in a dark club, in a dark room, nobody. I was gonna say, no, let's keep it PG. Uh, but the point is that it looks the part. It looks hot. It looks rocking. It looks good in the light and in the dark. So, um, actually, though, I do have a theory. I'm not going to leave us with just saying that I don't know. I don't know. Well, I do have a theory, and I'm not going to present this theory like it's fact or this is it, but it's just a theory, and I like to hear what you guys think. Is that script was really the issue? The script. You know, Gibson is not so much funny about the headstocks. Obviously, it's the script. See that Studio Lord script? The font? If you go to one of the older Love Rocks guitars, and one of the things that they actually got a cease and desist too, it was over the script. I know that. I know that for a fact because if you go back in my regular content, when the last time I was in Japan, I had a Love Rocks that I was showing off in the music store. And the script was the thing. It's the issue. I think not so much the headstock shape, but the script, because the script on that Ibanez today was, you know, Gibson-esque. And the scripts on the Love Rocks, on the Grecos, it's the Grecos for sure. The older Greco scripts is the same font as the Gibson scripts on some of those. And so, and I do believe one of the arguments that I heard out there about one of the issues that Gibson had, because they thought in 2011 when they sued again to try to get the against Fernandez because of script. Remember I talked about that? See now, yeah, I just thought about that. See, this free balling it sometimes shakes up a memory. They got that 2000 more recently in recent history. They got into Fernandez, and it was not about the hits; it was about the script. And the judge threw it out and said, I think that modern consumers these days are, because their argument was, well, when somebody sees it, they're going to confuse this with a Gibson. And the judge said, I think people these days are sophisticated enough to be able to know the difference between the two. Sayonara. So they lost that one. Literally sayonara, because I think it was in Tokyo court. And so that's how that went. So I think it was the script. I think it's always been the script. Think about Chipsons. Nobody is really ever saying, well, you know, it's close because they could make, you know, the headstock seems to be a floating target, a moving target, but the script is the thing that makes that a Chipson. It's that fake Gibson logo on there. So that's script. That would be more of an issue, obviously, and it is because of the counterfeit market out there flooding the real market, and we've talked about that, than the headstock shape, which can be licensed anyway by third parties for cheaper, obviously. Because again, that Stoner guitar, I will remind you that Stoner guitar had the standard of the three, 61 reissue, uh, shit, historic, and the standard headstocks, and that was licensed out. And the cost of that, let me tell you something. That Stoner guitar was like 1,000 euros, and it was made from far better woods and materials, and it still had that, you know. So again, I don't see the upcharge. The point of that is I don't see the upcharge with the recent Gibsons. I don't get it. Let me catch up here. Seamus O'Brien, my 78 Bernie FLG Jeff Beck has actual Les Paul scripts in that they say Les Paul. Yeah. 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 I think that the script has always been the issue. Les Paul. Yeah. Yeah. I think Les Paul. I think that's the script. I bought a fake Epiphone Les Paul custom. Who fakes an Epiphone? Fool me. Well, John Bond. Let me tell you, my man, everybody always thinks about who would fake an Epiphone, but think about having one thing, a Gibson that you're counterfeiting and trying to pass that through, as opposed to having 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 fake Epiphones. Those are easier to get through, and people aren't really checking like they are with Gibson. That would be the easier thing to fake. And that's why there's far more fake Epiphones out there than people realize, because of that very reason. The economy of scale, it makes more sense. Makes more sense, and it's an easier grift because people aren't checking. Yeah, I think, and yeah, the issue there with, again, touching on fakes, is that script. So, you know, my answer to the cease and desist order is it really was over script and not so much headstock. Just throwing that out there. I've encountered fake Epiphone Japan and Eberfeld by Gibsons. Watch out. Yeah. Yeah, because they're worth it now. I have an Orbital by Gibson SG that I have placed my IF siren upon that my agent is looking into as we speak because I want it's a 1989 Orville by Gibson SG that I'm thinking about bringing over here. Um, and believe me, I have educated myself on the scripts on those guitars, on those over by Gibson guitars. I know what to look for and the things that they can't fake. Um, but yeah, it's because they're expensive. They have value to them, you know. And the more that they start getting to be collectors items like this Yamaha Studio Lord, uh, because people recognize, hey, wait a minute, that's a way better guitar for way lot less money than a Gibson. You know, people really they've been waking up to that. I'd say for the last decade, but as things progress on, I think that's going to be a little bit more the norm too, increasing. And yeah, again, I'm digressing. Sorry. Again, the scripts are the issue that I think that they were placing the cease and desist order over because it was the same issue. It wasn't the issue that they brought up in 2011 in court. It was a script, you know, and headstock, basically. And so I think that kind of answers that. It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't the shape. It was what they thought was a deceitful practice of fooling people into thinking. And the truth of the matter is that Yamaha and Greco and Ibanez were making way better guitars than were being produced in the States. And they're like, you guys are killing us. That was really the truth of it, actually. Um, but what the legalese that was put forward is like again a little bit of murky waters still, even still. We know a little bit more, but we know a little bit more. But that's just my speculation. Again, you can take that or leave that one. But we've had enough people here in the comment section who have pointed out that they have that kind of Les Paul script on stuff from that time. So something to think about. Again, John Bond. Yep, quality of my 1977 179 Ibanez copy is awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a prime time lawsuit guitar. 19. That's the year that the cease and disorder. That's the year the one Ibanez down here that we took measurements from. Wasn't the 175, but it was from that period. And so again, in 76, actually 76 to 77, they were already making those slight changes. But I said those changes at the end of the day were millimeters on the size of headstock. So what else could it have been? Well, the script changed. The script changed. They stopped, putting Les Paul and all that other stuff in the middle part, and or in the case of Love Rocks, eventually in the early 80s, they kind of stopped doing that. But still, nowadays, if you go to the modern Love Rocks, they've got the script again. So it's like, again, it's like, you know, it's all moving target, man. I mean, we have hard data here. So at least we know that this is a 61 reissue headstock type. Um, we know that the Gibson headstocks, even in themselves, was like, somebody on a diet, go on vacation, get on a diet, yeah, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Go on vacation, go on a diet. It's just it moves up and down. And so it's an interesting topic. I'm glad I dug into it tonight. With you guys. And again, I read the comment section. So if you guys put things down in the comment section, who knows? I might use it as a topic or it might inspire me. Again, it raised a question in my head. What exactly lawsuit? Yeah, what lawsuit? Sorry, what cease and disorder? What were the contents of that cease and disorder? What exactly was it? The headstock? What was it? Exactly which one? And like I said, that question has been asked before. There's actually a few people that when I was researching this, that were asking that same question, and nobody had an answer, a definitive answer. I think it's a script. That's my opinion. I may be wrong. Um, anyway, there's that. Um, and these older guitars are awesome. They really are. The reason why I deal in them, the reason why I trade in them, buy and sell them, is because the quality is undeniable. And if quality is really your focus, then a modern day guitar may not be, especially for the prices that they're asking for these Epiphones. And if you're in that branch, if that's your zone, then these modern guitars may not be, or getting less, may not be. They're getting less and less attractive, because there's older guitars out there that that do better. They kick their asses, actually. Mm. And I'm a strong proponent of that because, again, it gets the manufacturers to to stop using so much wood in the construction of guitars unnecessarily, when we have a whole bunch of old ones out there that are still good. Again, this Yamaha here is 44 years old, and Fern gave it the double thumbs up today. You know, and I can't imagine it's the only one. Quite sure there's quite a few. As a matter of fact, I spend most of my time looking for them. That's that Orville by Gibson. I'm excited to bring in because I want to have an Orville. I've played a lot of them in Japan, but I've never owned one, and I want to bring one in so you guys can see one. And we haven't had an SG in a while, I thought, so that would be interesting. So that's why I've got my eye on it. I'm negotiating the price because it's not as pristine as this. It has a little bit of dents in it, not major ones, and it's missing the silver tone script on one of the knobs. So it's volume, tone, volume, blank. But I have replica. I have a lot of 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 it's the exact same type, so I could swap that one out with one, and so that's okay. It's still pretty much well original, but or just swap out that tone thing, just peel it off the new one and stick it on the old one. As a matter of fact, I think I think about it, that's probably what I'm going to do, because there's nothing wrong with the knob. It's just missing its decal. But I'm negotiating the price for little things like that. Little things like that. Like I said, even in this market, every ding will cost you, $10, $20. It's a point that you can negotiate on. They're only gonna go so low. They ain't gonna go too crazy with me. But I bring those up, and if the market is soft, and they're like, okay, fine. So that's what I'm hoping happens with this one. So we should have that in, possibly. We'll see. If not, then I'm back to my search. I'm back to the guitar safari again, which I want to be anyway, because I always like to have a plan B. I hate it, anyway, that's not important. Always have a plan B. So I'm going to probably try to find something else, but that would be interesting to have in for us to share, talk about. So there's that, guys. But again, we're talking about, that's an 89. We're talking about now a 35-year-old guitar, you know, and I like them. I like them because when you hold them, when you got them in your hand, again, like I said, it's that there's a gravitas to fine instruments, good instruments, that you can feel in it, you know. And it can, and if you hold enough of these in your lifetime, then your hands and your senses will tell you, you know, what's up. And I don't have that. That Joe Bonamassa 335 was well constructed. It had the most gravitas of any Epiphone that I've ever held. However, it's not in comparison to this or that Yamaha SA 700 that we had in here a couple of weeks ago. Not the same. They're not the same thing. The age helps, of course. That adds something to it, but that's more metaphysical, I guess, in a way. But there is something there. Just looking at my mid 70s 12 string Aria acoustic. Martin headstock and fretboard, but a Gibson body shape. Yeah, those Japanese were all over the place. John Bond, 100% agree. And now they are aged and broken in and settled after all this time. Hopefully, they're still original if we find them. Yes, that's why they call it a guitar safari. You gotta get out there and beat the bushes. Beat the bushes. Anybody see that Aussie condom commercial? Never mind. I think it's hilarious. You find that on YouTube. Peter Frampton Epiphone Phoenix, one of 1100, made in 2018. Unbelievable quality. Yeah, they put their foot into it. They put their foot into it on occasion. You know, I'm not saying that they don't. Again, like I said, that Joe Bonamassa had gravitas. I'm not saying it didn't, but it doesn't have the gravitas, obviously, and that's to be expected. That's not a big revelation there. But they have great quality there at Epiphone. I just think the upcharge, it's like, hey, you can do this. Wait a minute, you're doing this now. Well, what were you doing before? It's like, yeah. It just leads to more questions. I'm sorry. That price increase, the more every time I turn a corner, it leads to another question. I have questions. I just do. I'm sorry. I have questions. I do. I think a lot of people do. But that wasn't the purpose of tonight's discussion. Tonight's discussion was just to talk about the variations of the Gibson headstocks and how that's a floating target, obviously. And I want to thank Fern for taking the time out of his scheduled day when I went down there and doing those measurements professionally and sending them to me. Because as I was standing there, I had nothing to write it down on, as usual, prepared as usual. But he provided them to me, and I'm reading them off here tonight. Gotta go. All right, John. I appreciate you being here, brother. I hope to see you. We'll be here on Sunday night. Hope to see you again. Great laughs, great knowledge. Bye, guys. See you next time. You take care, sir. Thank you so much for showing up. Yeah, I want to thank Fern for doing that and just the coolness of it. Like I said, that's just great. Like, hey, I'm talking about tonight about it. Well, I got an Ibanez from that period over here. Awesome. I got a Gibson stereo. Well, let's take some measurements. He's like, yeah, great, let's do it. Because he loves that kind of stuff. Immediately, he and I were like, let's do it. And I know that sounds really super nerdy, but that's the guy that you have sitting in front of you. That's me. I'm not trying to be the cool guy. I'm curious. I have a curiosity about things, and I want to know the hard numbers and the facts. Because it leads to interesting things. And like I said, it clears up the fog of things too. The reason I want to bring these instruments in also is to do a little myth busting as well, you which I take great pleasure in because I abhor the fictions that have been floating around since I was a kid. Since I was a kid out there about guitars, you know, you know, starting with the tone wood thing. And so I actually make my selections of stuff that I buy because of the age. I won't touch anything newer than 2005. And the other thing is, so basically 20 years. Nothing prior to 20 years ago, I will purchase. But if the history of it too, and to be able to document that. And so Fern and I, we're just kind of nerds in that way, and it's good to have somebody like that around to be able to prepare for tonight's show. Have some facts that I could put out there instead of speculations. So there is that, guys. I am surprised. I am shocked. There are 10 people watching and 5 likes. So the math is not right there either. Hit those likes, guys. Got to hit those likes. I do appreciate you hitting the like button out there. I do appreciate you taking the time to watch me tonight. Um, you know, I seriously um, am amazed by the community that we have growing here on the Upstairs to the Right music channel. Every week, there's new folks joining in. I'm being asked to reach out and join in other people's live streams and growing the audience from the people that come from that. And it's funny, you do this. If you build it, they shall come. But when they come, you kind of stand there like, in awe. It's like, wow, this is a real community that's built. This is real. This is like, you know, pretty awesome. And I will commit to you and make this promise that I will stay myself and stay honest. And I will try not to mislead or misguide or misinform. And in return, I just ask that you support this channel by, of course, showing up. That's the first thing. And if you're new, or if you can, or if you feel like it, go over to bandcamp.com to the Asanoki page, Mike McWilliams or Asanoki. You can search either one, Mike McWilliams or Asanoki, and buy the Asanoki album and support this channel directly by purchasing the music that I've written. Specifically as merch. I want my merch to be music. Hey, I'm the Upstairs to the Right music channel. I'm not going to sell you a coffee mug or a T-shirt. I mean, I guess I could, but I think music would be a first piece of merch to have, and it's what I built the channel around. To be honest with you, that was my intention, and I'm so pleased to have had people go to Bandcamp and support the channel by buying the album, because it brings me great pleasure that that music is being listened to, and as an independent artist, really. We are a breed, and some of you out there are as well, you're independent artists that really count on the support of our communities. And so please consider that and do that. I would appreciate it. Seamus O'Brien, did Three Chord Dave put up your live stream? Looking forward to that. I'm sure that he will have that up. I haven't spoken to him about it. Usually, YouTubers, we film stuff and well, those of us who are great, not me. Well, I do sometimes. I'll do 2 or 3 or 4 even in advance, and then I'll program those in depending upon other things. So I'm sure he has a plan, and when it suits his needs, that will come up. It was a great thing to do. I enjoyed it. I really like talking to Dave. Like I said, man, there's just some cats out there that they have like the vibe or the aura just being good people, you know. And I'm getting to the age or old enough where I really only want to surround myself with good, solid people, because that way I grow. And I'm not too old to grow. As a matter of fact, I want to grow until I leave this earth. Okay? Always be seeking and always be striving. And having a guy like Dave invite me on like that was a pleasure. So I am looking forward to that myself. So you got that coming up, guys. I have this week coming up on Friday or Saturday. I will be releasing the video that I did, the head to head between the Fender 62 reissue and the Harley Benton 75 vintage series. Those two basses, I did a head to head between the two of them. So you will be seeing the results of what I thought about those two basses. Whether the Fender was so much more superior over the Harley Benton, or maybe it's just a choice of tonality. Maybe it's a choice of tone. So let's tune into that when it comes up, if you don't mind, guys. I would appreciate that, and I'd love to hear your comments on that one when it gets posted. And until next Sunday's live stream, I will wish you guys a good rest of the week. And I will talk to all of you soon. And thank you so much for showing up, guys. Take care. Bye bye.